Greetings, Mr. K and Mr. Mastering. My name is Bryan. I'm from section M1 of the COM 2112 Screen Production Technique. As for now, I will be conducting my individual assignment regarding the theory that you have assigned to me, which is the postmodernism theory in the film industry. So what's the meaning of postmodernism in the film industry? Based on my research, postmodernist film is a classification for works that articulate the themes and ideas of postmodernism through media or cinema. Postmodernist film attempts to subvert the convention of narrative structure and the characterization to test the audience's suspension of disbelief. Typically, such films also break down the cultural divide between high and low art and often upend typical portrayals of gender, race, class, genre, and time with the goal of creating something that does not abide by traditional narrative expression and structure. I would like to touch up with a little bit of modernism theory. This theory has been existed during the Hollywood golden age in the film industry with the creation of the three-act structure formula. This formula helped them to have a sustainable storyline and genre, which makes them one of the greatest filmmakers in the industry. Postmodernistic filmmakers does not love to abide by the rules, and they love to challenge new things. As they have been influenced by the mass pop culture, this is what makes them very different from the Hollywood film industry of the three-act structure. Now let's move on with the characteristic of the postmodernism theory. There are 7 types of characteristics. The first one will be irony, playfulness, and black humor. This characteristic means that a movie is supposed to be in a serious type and convert into a light-hearted one. Instead of having a grim and serious tension, we can insert humor inside the movie. For example, the movie Doctor Strangelove. It is talking about war. War means a serious and a tension situation that we may face if we are in the war. But instead of having a serious talk, having a serious conversation, they make it a funny one, something like a comedy kind of movie. But it's supposed to mean serious. This is what it means by this characteristic. So now let's move on with the second one, pastiche. Pastiche means that we take the element from other movie and we bring it into our own, from a lower grade movie to a high culture movie. Like for example, the movie Pride, Prejudice and Zombie. They are a very low budget movie. They took the element from others first and bring it into themselves. So you will see that the movie have a very illogical storyline and many obscene objects inside the film. This is what it means by pastiche. Now let's move on to the intertextuality characteristic. Do you remember the movie Ready Player One, where you can see a lot of other characteristics inside the movie, like Batman, Ninja Turtle, even the game Overwatch are inside the movie. This is means by intertextuality. It means we take someone's world and insert into our own film. It plays like an additional reference, just like we take other people's work, copy, paste. This is what it means by intertextuality. Fourthly, we will be talking about temporal distortion. Movies that consist with the characteristic of temporal distortion have a very irregular sequence. They have a non-linear timeline. They like to jump here and there. For example, filmmakers like Christopher Nolan, his movies have always been the popular in the characteristic of temporal distortion. For example, like the movie 500 Days of Summer, where the timelines at first was the future and it jumped back to the first day, where the protagonist and the antagonist met each other. It's very confusing, right? This is what it means by temporal distortion. Next, we will be moved to paranoia. It's about life threatening, where you don't feel the world is safe. You feel like you are struggling, being strengthened into a place. You don't feel free anymore. You feel like nothing is safe, and you will always concerned about the people you love and you wanted to save them. This can be referred to the movie of Enemy of the State or 2012, where it have those crime scene or maybe natural disaster. This is what it means about the characteristic paranoia. Let's move on. We will be talking about the faction. It's a characteristic movie which is a very unclear with the concept, blur between reality and virtual, confused between the truth and the false. It is a combination of facts and fiction, which means an audience may not know what the movie is trying to convey the message. You will feel very confused. Like for example, Memories of Murder. This Korean movie tells the story of a crime, a fight between gangs, but instead of they have a very clear vision of the storyline, they just like to confuse things, which makes us don't feel like what we are watching. Even though the movie are based on true story, but we don't actually feel like it's based on true story. Last but not least, the last characteristic will be the magical realism. Magical realism consists of illogical and non-realistic plot in the movie. For example, Harry Potter. Harry Potter have a very confusing timeline that we can't even explain. Even the plot is a bit complicated that we cannot explain in the real science of our world. Magical realism of a movie often have the protagonist to happen something in the real world, but we can feel the difference between the real and the virtual one. It may seem to be happening in the real world, but you won't feel like the world is the type that you know at all. This is what it means by magical realism. Something magical, something mysterious. That's all for my explanation of postmodernism theory. Thank you.